Hey, everybody, this is Amazing Fantasy Football. I, of course, am Josh, and that guy over
I'm
there.
Chris.
And I'm pointing over to him because we are in the same room. We are in his basement studio, as we've been talking about for
Weeks.
it seems like forever.
Right.
So if you're annoyed with us talking about it, well, it's the last time you're going to hear about it for a while because, I'm leaving soonish. Anyways, so we're here. We're recording on Friday, the day after the first round of the NFL draft. It's important to know that because we're only going to be doing our reactions to the first round for this week's episode. Next week, we will be covering the second round and probably the subsequent free agency moves that happen because usually once the draft ends, free agency kind of gets a spike in action again. So, I'd ask you how you're doing, Chris, but I just
You've been
saw
with me
you
all
like,
day.
oh, I can see you right now.
Literally see how you're doing. You're doing fine.
Yeah, he's there. He's existing. He's doing.
No,
all
I had
right,
a blast
folks.
last night. Doing our our NFL draft stream. Excited to record a show, like we do every weekend. Yeah.
Yep. So, if no one else, I don't really think there was any like real pertinent news other than the NFL draft.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. There is some, but we'll get to it.
Okay, cool. Let's start with Trevor Lawrence. He, of course, went number 1 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars, surprising absolutely no one. And I'm also going to roll this into is that the Jags also drafted Travis Etienne with the 25th overall pick. Well, let's just talk about them together. So, how do you feel about this, Chris? Other than not surprised?
I think Lawrence's results at Clemson speak for themselves. Both the numbers and the hardware. I've heard, and I mentioned this before, Andrew Luck. Not necessarily comparisons, but the greatest quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's saying something. So I think it's the right pick. I think they're going to get off and running, at least offensively. You know, as a whole team, they might still have a lot of work to do on defensive side of the ball, maybe even offensive line. But and he gets Etienne, his backfield mate from college. So wheels up, man. I'm excited about what these kids can do together. Remember, and obviously not same school, but Zeke and Dak came in together. That was an instant sensation there for a year or two. So something a result like that is kind of what I'm envisioning for fantasy reasons. I don't necessarily think they're going to be win-loss column, put up a bunch of W's, but yeah. And then of course, Tebow coming across the middle, right?
No. Anyway, so I feel like, I looked at DJ Chark and obviously he was banged up last year, but that was some bad quarterbacking from Gardner, your boy Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
And what's Turkey neck's name?
Glennon?
Mike Glennon. Man, he's got a turkey neck. So I feel like other than like just some maybe just like right out of the gate, maybe a little bit of a rookie learning curve for Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, we're not out of the woods yet with that.
That could potentially be there. That this has got to help Chark and Laviska Shenault and Marvin Jones there. Like, I don't really think they're in want or in need this year in the NFL draft to get a receiver.
I don't think they have to force themselves into that. And I agree.
Giving Marvin Jones gives them an excellent other guy.
Vet.
Excuse me,
good,
on the outside.
A really good vet.
Yeah. But we saw with Justin Herbert too. Like, he came in and for the Chargers in week 2 last year and was great. So Trevor Lawrence could easily do the exact same thing too, and he could be a fantasy starter. Like, I want to wait and see. I'm not going to go out and say draft Trevor Lawrence in redraft.
I was just going to say a lot of our audience, a lot of our leagues we're in are more your traditional redraft, 10, 12 teams. Like, you're probably not looking at them. Single quarterback.
We covered a couple weeks ago too with our quarterback prospects and everything. I feel like Trevor Lawrence is a must draft in the first round of Dynasty though, especially if you're an Aaron Rodgers manager or a Tom Brady. Those older quarterbacks that are like they're on their way out the door at some point. Maybe Ben Roethlisberger. You have him on your team. Getting Trevor Lawrence would be a great replacement for any of those three that have less time left than they do more in the league. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They have less time left than say your Russell Wilsons and your no, not that guy. He's not going to be in the league for long. You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Thank you very much. But let's talk about Etienne, though. I mean, the Jets are going to have, or I'm sorry, the Jags are going to have to do something about their offensive line. They ranked 22nd according to Pro Football Focus. So, and that of course is always right. But I mean that, and PFF's rankings are always subjective.
Sure,
I mean, it is their group's opinions of offensive lines and everything. But it's a good reference point at least. And 22nd, that's last time I checked, that was in the bottom half of the
third.
NFL.
Yeah.
Even bottom third,
Right.
really.
Yeah.
Close enough. Yeah, they're going to have to do something in day 2 and 3. They did make a couple of off-season acquisitions to make their offensive line a little better. Nope, that was Miami. Never mind. So yeah, they're going to have to do some. They're going to have to do some upgrading on that offensive line. But like I said in the past, though, I think that Etienne, or like I said in our stream last night, I think Etienne has potentially the higher ceiling than Harris, but there's got to be some work to.
Didn't we both kind of agree? I know it's a canned answer, but we said it depends on landing spot a lot, right?
And this is a good landing spot.
I agree. I think that's because of Lawrence.
It's because of Lawrence. It's
staff.
because they have weapons already in place
like
too.
you talked about with Chark and Jones.
Yeah, and the only wrinkle in the equation is James Robinson. What happens with James Robinson now? It's really too early to tell, but I think they're going to hold on to him. I mean, he's practically free anyway, so he's an undrafted rookie. Like,
yeah, he cost him in a manner of speaking. He cost him nothing.
In the NFL sense, he's costing him next to nothing.
So are you? Are we gonna? What am I trying to say? Are you ready to move on from him? Meaning, like, James Robinson is either staying in Jacksonville and loses his role, or he goes elsewhere and that's actually a benefit, and he gains a role elsewhere, like a starting role.
Let's put this into a dynasty aspect, mainly because I think I'm gonna maybe toss out, because our draft is it starts in exactly a week from right now. That as of a recording, so I think that I'm gonna maybe like toss out a cheap offer to the James Robinson manager and see if he's panicked.
Right. Buy low.
And then I can get him on the cheap, and if I do get him, and I only want him on the cheap because what if I'm wrong and he ends up staying and he's just in a quagmire of a backfield in Jacksonville.
You would think the James Robinson owner is be like, I'm just kind of glad I'm getting something because I'm pretty sure this is over. Right?
For sure, but at the same time, like we covered in our coaching change episode, though, Urban Meyer it's Urban Meyer. His entire time at Ohio State, he mainly used one running back. Granted, that's a 12-game season, but we're looking at 17. But I think that they drafted Etienne to be the guy, and I don't really know if they're going to want to hang on to James Robinson. So they could easily he could easily just be a depth guy on their roster, or they could try and trade him and see what they can get for him too. You know,
in a manner of speaking, RIP James Robinson. We're on the same page. It's going to take him going elsewhere to pick up a role and more snaps for him to be relevant.
For sure. Or if he does stay with the Jags, it's going to take an injury, I think, to really get him back into action.
Remember, I in a manner of speaking, I called it. I said his job is not safe. I gloated about.
I don't want to admit that he's right. But
I was.
He's sort of.
But I gloated enough about it last night live on
Twitch,
so
called it. Sort of
on our draft coverage.
Let's move on to let's move on to Zach Wilson here. Of course, he was taken number 2 overall by the Jets, and not really surprising anyone at all. Like Trevor Lawrence. Chalk. I think this was kind of a foregone conclusion once Wilson had his first pro day. It was impressive, and I think the Jets fell in love.
Agreed.
He's got a little bit of work to do, and it's going to be on this brand new coaching staff to fix these minor mechanical problems that he has, technical issues that he has. But
there's a lot to work with there.
There's a lot to work with there. Like the Jags, the Jets I mean, there's a reason why they're 1-2. They have some offensive line issues as well. But the Jets did draft Elijah Vera Tucker at 14 overall. They traded up to grab him. He's an offensive lineman that has some some versatility.
Yeah, for sure.
He can play guard. He can play tackle. So I think I liked it. I know I've seen some bashing on that sort of thing in some when we were doing research for this episode.
Folks didn't like the
earlier
pick
today.
Folks didn't like the pick.
Yeah, they didn't like them. They didn't like trading up for an offensive lineman, and especially this one. I think that those people were just hoping that they would grab a running back, and they wanted a flashier 6-year pick.
Okay,
instead of a. I think that's what. I think that's where they're getting at. I think it is too.
It's a little aggressive, but I like it.
When your offensive line is ranked 29th by PFF after last year. Why not try and secure a guy that has some versatility? Yes, I think from what I remember, his more natural position is guard.
That's the impression I'm getting.
But he can play tackle and did play tackle in college. So.
And if they can link these two kids together for a decade plus, and Wilson is fits the bill, especially arm talent wise, I'm happy for him.
I'm excited to see what Zach Wilson can get done with Denzel.
Yeah, just like the Jags, we're worried about their O line. So hey, Jets did what maybe we thought the Jags should have done.
But we're only 1 day into the draft. The rest of it is yet to come, and there are still some. Granted, they're older, but there are some offensive linemen out there too in free agency as well. So, it's not. This isn't over yet, folks. Stay tuned until next week, and like I said, we're going to cover more of the rest of it next week. On to Trey Lance. I know Chris doesn't necessarily like this pick. Right?
Yeah, not. I feel like I don't want to rain on people's parade, but I know people are excited, and I am still excited about his ceiling. I just don't think this move makes sense for the Niners. I think I was higher on Fields. He was my number 2 quarterback. So I'm a little flabbergasted, meaning like I just thought they would go with a guy that I think can contribute right away in Fields. I love the accuracy with Fields, but in Lance, what I guess they're seeing, because I have to defer to a really good front office, quite frankly. Dang it. They're a win now team, in my opinion, so it could have used the accuracy and the experience that Fields brings, but apparently Shanahan, he thinks his scheme and his coaching can, quote, win now with an incredibly raw passer. Like, he's a very raw passer, so maybe that athletic ability will sustain him in his first couple years of his career to let the passing kind of come around, a la Josh Allen. And then I'll be wrong. But for now, I'm sticking to my guns like that. I don't know. I'm not high on it.
I, on the other hand, love this, but I only love this if the Niners take the Patrick Mahomes route. They keep Jimmy Garoppolo for the remainder of his contract, which is just this year. And they sit Trey Lance, let him learn, let him work on his mechanics, his accuracy, all of that. And then in 2022, come out the gates, Trey Lance on fire like Pat Mahomes did in his sophomore season. The one thing I have written down here is that much like Trevor Lawrence, and even to a greater extent in Dynasty, I don't think he's going to go in the first round. I think it'll be more of a second round pick. But teams that are quarterback needy, this is a guy to pick up. But not needy this year. If you're like staring down the barrel of
go and spend that second round pick to take a chance on this guy, it's going to be worth it.
To take a chance on him and not a this year chance, but a next year chance, like the 2022 season. Like you got a Ben Roethlisberger, you got those aging quarterbacks. This is a perfect guy, I think, to pick up and stash for next season, not this coming 2021 season.
For sure. One thing I wanted to touch on real quick and kind of ask you is, do you think it's an issue them putting in Lance in packages as a skill position, as a runner, receiver, etc. type of thing? Because their offense does tailor to the likes of Debo and Ayuk. And there are some end arounds and some what do you call them, shovel passes.
You can see some Taysom Hill-esque,
That's a good way to put
Sean Payton Taysom Hill-esque plays that are maybe drawn up for Trey Lance. And this is all assuming that they hang on to Jimmy G.
That they're sticking to the plan.
I think
The-
that is the smartest thing to do.
I think we're on the same page there. I would agree, but I also like the idea
And
of using him a little bit. Yeah.
well, and here's the thing too is that if Jimmy Garoppolo comes out and he struggles like he did at times in the 2020 season, granted some of that could have been due to his thumb injury or whatever, but if he starts struggling, I can see them pivoting to Trey Lance and just being like, all right, kid, let's see what you got.
Yeah.
I hope they don't. I hope they just stay the Jimmy G course, barring injury. Just stick with him. I don't know. We'll see. Let's move on to Kyle Pitts here. Take it away, man. just take it away.
I don't know. I guess I've gushed enough about Pitts, but he kind of went in that area. We thought if the Falcons would pass on him, Bengals would probably scoop him up. But I think the Bengals are real happy with theirs. We'll get to them in a second. Pitts, yeah. So I kind of want to cut to the chase. Like, do you make a move with Julio now, or do you? Or
oh no, we're cutting to the Pitts. Chase is next.
Right. Good point.
Dad joke.
So yeah, like I said, cut to the chase. Like, I want to know as a
Pitts.
personnel guy, like, are you kind of wanting to make a move there, or are you just like going with a greatest show on turf, Julio and Ridley on
the outs and Hayden Hurst and Pitts and who
Gage?
is that third?
Gage still?
Russell Gage, I
Yeah.
believe he is still there. Thank you. Yeah, I think it could be that kind of thing, and they haven't taken a running back as of yet, so they only have Mike Davis, who is a decent enough back, like he showed in Carolina. I just don't think he has a 17-game season in him.
No, and I don't think anybody's going to argue.
I think he was really wearing down towards the end of last year. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely could be a greatest show on turf sort of thing. Kyle Pitts, great, and I want to kind of segue into we were talking about this before we started recording, but in our dynasty league, we were just kind of sitting there.
Yeah,
we were kind of sitting there, and we were like. So, like, the big three in Dynasty that we can see as of right now is Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, if you wanted to flip them, whatever, and then Kyle Pitts.
Yep.
And so now we're sitting there, well, what's the fourth pick going to be? Because I actually have the fourth overall pick because I just took over a bad team. No big deal, whatever. What's the fourth pick going to be? And and Chris was like, well, it's got to be Chase. And I was like, I don't know if I really need a receiver, though. And I looked at my team, and I was like, I got Joe Burrow, though. Man, that's a great pick at 4 to pair Burrow with Chase for years to come. Yeah. And a little bit of a segue, Chase is the next guy we're talking about here, too, because Cincinnati did pick him. I don't think it's the right pick. I think it is a bad pick in the sense that your offensive line was ranked 30th, third worst, and you had a potential 10-year All-Pro tackle in Penei Sewell sitting there on the board. Why not take him? It's hard that for a quarterback to throw downfield when he's on his back. If he doesn't have protection, he doesn't have time to throw the ball. He got injured because he wasn't getting protection. Joe Mixon has been injured because he's getting punished behind the line of scrimmage. You have potentially a great running back who has nowhere to run. You have potentially a great quarterback with no time to throw. I mean, and Burrow looked good last year behind that bad offensive line, but man, come on, Bengals. You know, I know it's a sexy, flashy pick, but I don't know. Man.
I'm there with you.
I like Jamar Chase.
Yeah, don't get us wrong.
I think he's going to be good in the NFL.
Absolutely, and good in fantasy too.
Yes, and good in fantasy.
But
where do you see him going in a redraft though? What do you think about that?
Well, if you make the assumption he's the number 1 there, which I think we can all agree that he is. We love Tiggins, and others there.
I mean, if he's not the 1, he's the 1B.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say he's going to be the 2.
I don't think I'd mind him as my wide receiver 2, so I'll call him a high-end 2.
In a redraft?
So wide receiver, call it 13, 14, 15.
Oh, wow. You're going to draft him way before me, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what's that work out to? The 3rd or 4th?
5th round, maybe.
Later? Okay, I was thinking
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I guess I'm not doing the math well in my head, but
Well, it just depends on this, that, and another thing.
but yeah, I feel pretty strongly about him. But I'm also, I don't know. I guess we'll see when I start getting more into rankings as draft fantasy draft season gets closer. But sounds like I might be a little high on him. But I am concerned
wide
about the
receiver
O
did you
line
say?
not being addressed
What
like you are
what
at the same time.
what wide receiver did you say?
13,
Like
14,
wide receiver
15.
13?
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark. High end 2, top. Yeah,
Hold on a
high end
second.
2.
I'm getting there.
That's
I'm
okay.
getting there. Wide receiver 13 went in the 21st pick overall. So that's the end of the
Second.
That can't be right.
I'm sorry. Yeah, into second.
Yeah, end of the second.
So we were both off.
Okay.
I don't think I want to go that early.
I don't think these numbers are right, but that's okay.
But if we're
I'm
talking
just
second,
I'm looking up
yeah,
on
I
the
think
fly.
I'm out in the second, to be fair.
And
so
then,
maybe
yeah,
I'm saying third or fourth.
that can't be right. Let's move on to Jalen Waddle, who was picked as at number 6 by the Miami Dolphins. I think this was kind of weird because like the Bengals, they were another team.
I
that
was just
that
going to
needed
say,
some-
do you see more of the
they
same
needed some-
story here?
They needed some offensive line upgrades. Now, the Miami was the team that I was thinking of that they did get a center. They did bring back a guy for tackle depth, but still. But I mean, like another team that has a young quarterback that really could have used protection from him, and it wouldn't have necessarily been on Tua's blind side because he's a lefty, but you know, the Dolphins are obviously looking for speed. Once again, how is a guy supposed to sling the ball down the field? And they got speed. They have Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle on the outside, 2 super fast receivers. Well, how is Tua going to have time to throw the ball deep when he's laying on his back?
Yeah, with Waddle, I don't love the move either. I think you address maybe offensive line there. I just like the depth at receiver. I think you could have gotten something, maybe turn around at 18 because that's a good segue. They had another first round pick, Jalen Phillips, edge rusher. I didn't realize until I did some research today that he's had an awful injury history, including 4 concussions. That forced him to medically retire from UCLA before getting on with the Miami Hurricanes. So I don't necessarily love that pick. Maybe I would have felt better if they go offensive line there and pick up a receiver at 18. I mean, I'm high on who's the Minnesota kid, Rashad Bateman. So there's that. But yeah, that's how I feel about. It's more the same story with the Waddle pick. Just it's sexy, and we like it for fantasy, but we want to see the results because we're worried about keeping these young quarterbacks upright.
So, like, wide receiver 13 would be in the end of the third.
More like
Just
where
to
I was
update
saying,
that.
third or fourth. Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
And I don't know. Dolphins, you had Preston Williams, which obviously, like, Chris isn't very high on. I was going into 2020. He got hurt. He's still real young. You have Devontae Parker. You got Will Fuller. You have Mike Gesicki. You didn't exactly need Jalen Waddle. It wasn't exactly a position of need. Yeah, Fuller's only on a 1-year contract, but it doesn't mean you can't give him another contract. It's just weird. You want to move on, or do you got
I'm
anything
good.
else?
Yeah,
to
I
say
got
about-
my piece in on
okay.
Waddle.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that he can't succeed there. I just feel like it's gonna be.
It's a lot of speed.
He's probably gonna go.
It's a lot of speed in
probably
that
gonna,
pass catching lineup.
and he's probably gonna go a lot lower as far as in redrafts, just because there are a lot of other pass catchers there, and it's gonna be kind of hard to suss out before draft time. Really, who's gonna be Tua's guy?
Yeah, fair. I would lean Fuller at this point.
Me as well, but we'll see.
We will.
Let's move on to number 7. The number 7 pick was Detroit, and they took Penei
Yeah,
Sewell.
thank you. This is what we've been harping on.
Actually, like from what I read though, it's a little odd that they took him, considering they have a pretty good left tackle.
Is it Decker?
I believe so. Yeah. And so it's a little odd that they did that. I mean, yeah, you can try and move guys over to the other side of the line and whatever. But when Detroit had other needs like on defense, and they could have. Sorry about that. They could have taken the next guy on our list here for their defense. They could have taken a wide receiver. They could have used Waddle, or they could have used Devontae Smith.
That's the one. That's the one where the rubber meets the road.
This is where wide receiver makes the most sense. The other two teams before that took wide receivers had some in play already, whereas Detroit kind of doesn't.
Yeah.
So, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to besmirch Detroit too much for taking a guy who, like I said earlier, for the next 10 years could be an all-pro
especially when we were kind of
tackle.
bashing Cincy and Miami for what they did. Yeah.
But they really need the help. Detroit.
You could argue that didn't. Not to that level. Exactly. But I think maybe it speaks on how they feel about Sewell and
but it should. But this should help Goff stay upright a little bit more, and it should definitely help DeAndre Swift. It's Penny's. He's an all-around great tackle. So it's not just he's a good run blocker, but not a good pass blocker. Or he's a good pass blocker, not a good run blocker. No, all around he's good.
Yeah, and I'm sure him and Taylor Decker can coexist. Like maybe Sewell's not at left. Maybe Sewell's not at left to begin, and I'm pretty sure he's a straight-up tackle, so he wouldn't be inside. So he'd go to right tackle and run block well for Swift. Fantasy-wise, I do like it. You do make a great point about being a little hollow at receiver. So I would have felt better about. Yeah, I probably maybe Devontae Smith, but I don't dislike the Sewell pick here because, like I said, at 5 and 6, we were critical that I want to see some offensive line help.
For sure. All right, let's move on to J.C. Horn. He's a corner, and he was taken by the Panthers. I don't want to spend too much time on this. It's a defensive player, and we're about fantasy football. But the Panthers did take him as the first cornerback off. I just want to reiterate cornerback off the board, and it was a thing they really needed. Yeah, the Panthers spent every single one of their draft picks last year on defense.
Oh,
and
wow.
You don't remember that?
I do now, I think. Yeah, but not off the top of my head.
But as of this time in 2021, that didn't exactly pan out. It's not to say that those guys can't grow and be developed and do something great, but when you had really bad pass defense, J.C. Horney's going to come in and be great for him right away.
Hell of a player.
And let's roll that kind of into the next guy taken as well, which was Patrick Surtain by the Broncos. Very interesting here that they did not take Justin Fields at this point. They obviously are willing to roll either a combination of Drew Lock and Teddy B for a year and see what happens, I guess.
Yep, that's apparently their strategy.
I think Teddy B is the insurance in case Lock doesn't work out, and I think it's good insurance. But I don't know, man. I like Justin Fields better than both of them. So I do know,
also.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And like I said, we're fantasy football. So let's move on to the 10th overall pick, which was Devontae Smith by the Eagles, not the Cowboys. The Eagles traded up a couple of spots to make sure that they got their guy, Devontae Smith. This guy's good. He's really, really good. He's just got a problem of being really, really skinny. He's real slight. He's lithe, if one might say.
I always thought it was lithe.
Lithe. It's lithe.
Like
Lithe. Lithe.
Like Scythe?
Sure.
Okay.
Anyways, wait, did you say scythe?
Yeah.
What's a scythe?
That's a scythe, sorry. See,
scythe.
This is why we're hashing this out.
Okay.
I'm bad with pronunciation.
Chris can't say words apparently. Anyways, I mean he's great all around. He's every single aspect of his game is great. He is just not very strong or muscular.
Skinny dude.
So, and whatever. I mean, I guess he's going to be there. He's going to be the next Deshaun Jackson.
I think it's a good comp. I think it's what they were looking for.
Why don't you take away? Okay, what do you think about Devontae Smith and Dynasty? Let's go there.
Sure. Real quick before I do that, I'm going to just touch on the actual NFL draft real quick. Like you said, at 8-9, two corners were a fantasy show, but it did, force Dallas, so to speak. They missed the two top corners. There must have been a tier.
We're not there yet.
Oh, sorry. No.
Our next pick is not Dallas, so let's save that.
No, I'm saying it relates to the Eagles coming up. That's all. Okay. Eagles coming up to get their Deshaun Jackson. Dallas is kind of in a bind. They answer the phone rings or what have you. Real quick, the details of it. Eagles, of course, give their first, 2 picks later, the 12th pick overall, and their third, which is 84th overall, which is from the Indy, the Wentz trade. Dallas, of course, gives their pick, the 10th pick overall. And Devontae it's got it bad having to be a Dallas fan and watch him play for probably 10 years, assuming like you said, at that size he can stay healthy. I think the league's kind of moving towards this type of receiver, though. So I think it's a good pick. I think it's aggressive. I don't think they had to give up too much. But as a Dallas fan, I think it's nice to fall back and still get somebody good.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you there. That was pretty
Thank
good. Why don't you take away the next guy?
Yeah. This is kind of my guy. This goes back to the number 3 pick, Trey Lance. This is who I wanted at 3. Justin Fields, Ohio State quarterback, goes to the Bears. Bears make a aggressive move to get up, which they were very much maligned for how many years ago now? 4 years ago with
3-4 for
Trubisky. Thank you.
But in this one, sorry to interrupt you again, but in this one, they didn't give up a ton. They gave up what was it? It was a 5th round this year, and their first, obviously.
Swap those.
And they're giving up their first and a 4th rounder next year. But that's it. That's not terrible. And I know you're about to say this, but I'm gonna beat you to it because I interrupted you and I'm a jerk. But I think that I'm not a Bears fan. I'm also not a Browns fan. I'm a Colts fan. But I think that I love this move for the Bears. I think this is the Bears finally get a franchise quarterback.
Everybody I've talked to, seen on Twitter, everybody's just they think it was a good move. They're happy for them, and whether this pans out or not, we're not prognosticators. We don't actually know, but they get to enjoy this all the way up to August, September, and be like, and hopefully be wowed by what he's doing in camp. I think everybody's excited for Bears fans. I think they hit it finally.
Yep. And while I'm not a Bears fan, I'm a Chicago White Sox fan, and I know we're not a baseball podcast, but I just want to say I read during the White Sox game last night that somehow in the stands it got started that everyone just started chanting Fields, 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 like after he got selected. So I think that's great, and it shows that the city of Chicago is super happy with this move as well. And I think that Ryan Pace gets to keep his job for at least the rest of this year.
And then, of course, fantasy. I mean, Allen Robinson. Come on.
All right. Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney.
Mooney.
I wish I would have gotten Mooney in that
throws a beautiful deep ball.
dynasty. But yeah, let's keep rolling here because we're already running pretty long.
We're done with Fields. Let's go.
Let's move on. The 12th overall pick was Micah Parsons by the Cowboys. They
already touched on
earlier.
Said
before. Yep, they swapped with the Eagles. While linebacker wasn't the greatest need for the Cowboys, this guy's really good, or he's supposed to be really good. So
another Penn State guy.
Yep. Let's move along to Rayshawn Slater, who was drafted by the Chargers, 13th overall. I love this pick because I love Herbie and I loved Austin Eckler, and I know Chris feels the same way too. And this is great. I mean, I love that they got the Packers center now, and they also have a former Packer offensive tackle.
Man,
and
wheels up for sure.
Who's a really good tackle, maybe not a Pro Bowler or whatever, but he's still really good when he does play healthy. And you add Rayshawn Slater to the equation of this offensive line, and I think the Chargers are doing the right thing by trying to get Herbie some protection. And this is great. I love it, and I love Herbie moving forward. I love Austin Eckler moving forward for next year as well. Keenan Allen, but to a lesser extent, Mike Williams. Not a Mike Williams fan, but still, whatever.
Maybe there's somebody else.
I don't know.
Supplant them.
I would love to see the Chargers get a couple more weapons, which they still have time to do in this and the rest of the draft.
Who's a tight end for them?
And in free agency too. They just let Hunter Henry walk.
That's what I'm saying.
So.
Yeah, I don't think they have anybody of note there.
And with the 14th overall pick, we already talked about the Jets who took Elijah Vera Tucker. Let's not dwell on that anymore. We kind of already talked about it. So let's move on to number 15 here. Mack Jones to the Patriots. Why don't you say your little spiel about Mack Jones?
They didn't
take a drink.
They didn't have to move up, as I prognosticated, right around that Dallas area at 10. So there's that. I think he fits a need. I think we can all agree on that. I've heard a lot that he's the most pro ready, so that's gonna, as far as fantasy and just personnel, now we're looking at, okay, you just signed Cam again. Granted, it was for peanuts, I guess. But I assume it's Jones, man. I don't know. Maybe Cam's okay with the backup mentor role, but I think he's ready. I don't know how many
Yep.
games they're going to win. I'm not in love with the post Brady Belichick era.
Well, a lot of it's been roster mismanagement
Yeah,
too.
there's not a whole lot to throw to. So in fantasy terms, which is the type of show we are, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, okay.
The one thing I got written down here about Mac
Mm-hmm.
Jones, and from what I've read and everything about him, is that this is probably outside of maybe going to San Francisco, which was way too rich at 3. I think that this is a really great landing spot. That Mac Jones probably has enough football
I
IQ,
think
or
it's a good
does have
marriage
the
in that
football
respect.
IQ,
Agreed. Yeah.
to run what can be a very complex Josh McDaniels offense.
Right.
And it's all, and that's for years now that this offense, and a lot of it is because of their weapons in New England, but they don't have a lot of deep threats, so they don't need a guy with a cannon to throw the ball
Good point,
downfield.
yeah.
It's shorter
Yeah,
throws,
Brady
it's
was
option
slicing
routes.
them up in the middle of the field.
Yeah,
Those last handful of
exactly.
years.
So this is actually a pretty good fit for Mac Jones, and I think Mac Jones should be extremely ecstatic to be going to the Patriots right
Yeah,
now.
it's a good fit for him.
And I think
vice
that
versa.
this could really work out well for Fish, what's his face? Philly guy went to Las Vegas last year.
Nelson Aguilar.
Thank you. All right, let's move on.
Let's more.
Sorry, we're gonna kind of power through the rest of this because we are running a little long here, and we have some defensive guys too that'll help.
Yeah, there's gonna be a big
skip this
chunk of
right
them.
along.
Big chunk of them.
Big chunk. Anyways, so we got Zavon Collins, who the Arizona Cardinals drafted with the 16th overall pick. From what I could suss out, he is mainly he's more of a pass rusher than any. I'm sorry, he's a linebacker too.
Correct.
Out of Tulsa.
Correct.
He's mainly a pass rusher, and that's his main role. And for like a 3-4 kind of defense sort of thing, which is something the Cardinals needed. They needed defense. This is not bad. Everyone was, I think, hoping that they would grab another receiver for whatever reason, or something, something offensively sexy, but nah, they went defense. It was the right move to do, at least as far as going defense. So right on. You got anything else to say about
good.
Mr.
I'm good
Collins
on
here?
Mr.
Cool.
Collins, the linebacker.
Cool. On to number 17, which is the 17th overall pick, which is the Raiders. They picked Alex Leatherwood, who is an offensive tackle, and I have written down here what I could find is that he's a really great run blocker, but he struggles at times with pass blocking. That's not good for Carr, but at the same time, the Raiders blew up their offensive line this offseason, so I guess somebody is better than absolutely nobody playing that position. So
Fair.
Whatever. It's maybe not the pick I would have made, Raiders, but
Yeah, kind of a head scratcher.
yeah. And it's a head scratcher that they blew up their offense. They let their guys walk in free agency and everything before. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of
That's the
sense.
cupboard bear, so to speak. Maybe forced himself into this pick. Maybe that's who they had at tackle or guard.
I don't know. I liked Christian Darrisaw more than Alex Leatherwood, but that's just me personally. I'm not getting paid to do this or to be an NFL scout. So if you would like to hire me to be an NFL scout, please, you can contact us at amazingffb at gmail.com. Let's move on to Jalen Phillips here. Chris already said his spiel about him with the Dolphins.
Yeah, we
grabbing
touched
him
on
at
him about those
18th overall.
concussions and whatnot.
So let's not dwell on in the past here. Number 19, we have the Washington football team. They take Jamon Davis. He'd be Jamon. Sounds like a bit of a middle of a linebacker or whatever. He's pretty good in coverage. It was a weakness by the football team, so kudos to them.
Yeah, I got the similar impression that they need a little help there. They had let somebody go and they got a little shallow there. And hey, make your strength stronger.
Exactly. I mean, they have an okay secondary and a great defensive front. So why not fix some of those holes? And obviously with those 5 quarterbacks off the board, yeah, they need a quarterback, but they didn't trade up to get one. Probably for the best. They were too far down. Why pay that much draft capital to move
Mhm.
up. You know, you got Ryan Fitzpatrick for at least this year, maybe even 2 years.
Mhm.
You're not necessarily in quarterback need, so whatevs. Let's move on to Kadarius Toney, with who the Giants moved down to draft. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, they moved down to draft Kadarius
Let me
Toney
double
with
check.
the 20th overall pick. Chris, how do you feel about this pick?
I don't like it.
You don't?
No. I think
No, me neither.
talent-wise, I understand where they're going, but from an aspect of you only have in the ballpark annually about 15 or 20 first-round players, so you can assume they were at the end of that or they were out of first-round players. They have Shepard, redundant asset, a similar player. Yes, I understand Tony's the far superior athlete. I don't know, man. Dave
Well,
Gettleman.
they have
Gettleman's got to Gettleman. Your annual Gettleman's got to Gettleman. That's what this was to me. I'm over it.
well they
I think for too long
they
that
they have
they're gonna
Shepard
blow it
who's
up.
similar. They just signed
Galladay,
They just signed Galladay. They still have Darius Slayton, who's a little raw,
but a speedster.
but has shown talent.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have a fourth wide receiver. You're taking wide receiver number 4 on your
And
team
you have
in the first round.
I think we can agree they have a top. I don't know what ballpark I want to say. They have a good pass catching tight end in Ingram.
Yeah, exactly.
Eh.
So now you're drafting your pass catching option number 5 in the first round.
Mhm.
It makes no sense, especially since their offensive line was bad.
Go ahead.
And and their defense wasn't that great either. They did kind of come on towards the end of the year, their defense. Well, why not take that strength and build upon it?
Or go tackle like Darrisaw.
Yeah, I don't
And
get
if
it.
you're
but
gonna go
whatever.
receiver, I did not have Tony up there. I would have gone Bateman.
Me as well.
Again, a little bit of a redundant. I know he's not as big as Galladay, but a little bit of a redundant asset in terms of how
I
they
don't
win.
know. I would have looked at the rest of the draft board and been like, "There's not a lot of teams out left that need a wide receiver.
I think,
why are we taking wide receiver, and why aren't we waiting until the next?
I think
round?
this
And maybe moving up in the second to grab a guy that we really like. I don't.
I think this regime is getting blown up in a couple of years, probably. Quarterback, probably too. You know what I mean?
It's well deserved. Let's move on to the Colts, who picked with the 21st overall pick. They picked Kwity Paye.
Yeah.
I'm not in love with this pick. They did need help. They need help on the defensive front, and it's mainly just because Kwity Paye is not that big. I don't want to go into this too much. It's a defensive guy. We're a fantasy show. But that's who the Colts picked. I was kind of hoping for an offensive lineman, but there's always today, tomorrow,
right,
whatever. Free agency.
For fantasy's sake, let's just hope that he helps, like more or less, like you said, plug a gap, and that Indy defense continues to be pretty darn good, and it gives more opportunities to Taylor.
Yep.
And others.
Moving on to the 23rd pick, which was by the Vikings, who traded down and still got a guy I think they really liked, and a guy that I like, and that's Christian Darrisaw. And this can only be good for Cousins and for the entire offense. It can only make an offense that was pretty darn good last year even better, with Cousins still throwing to why am I blanking on his name? Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. You got what's his face? Dalvin Cook coming out of the backfield too. This has got to help him. I don't know if it really moves Dalvin Cook on my draft board. He couldn't have really gotten any higher than probably top 5 overall anyway, so whatever. You got anything else to say out here?
No, I was just looking up the details of the trade. As we discussed earlier, they got 2/3, so I like it. I love the move. I think you get a early third, number 66. So
yep,
and a little more make your strength stronger. Cook, we're all about him being a great fantasy back next year.
Why don't you take the next pick away? It's within the 24th overall pick.
All right.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, like Chris predicted, not that he was really
I wasn't
going out on a limb
exactly.
Picked Najee Harris.
It's funny. Sometimes you don't know what smoke to believe and what not, when you're talking about rumor mill. But there was a lot of talk heating up about Najee going to the Steelers. I love the move. I think while I have been a guy who's like RBs don't matter, they do, first of all, because you have your generational talents like your CMCs and whatnot, but also you have the value spot where you're a team in more or less win now mode with a quarterback that's trying to get a couple more years in before he retires and maybe get another ring. Yeah, he's great. I think he's going to be the Dynasty 101 immediately. Unless, like Josh said, you want to flip Etienne, but I'm still leaning Harris for now. Redraft, he's probably an RB1. He's probably a top 12 back. Yeah, and we touched on your fourth pick in the Dynasty League already. So I won't harp on that.
I don't know. I mean, I want to before I go hog wild in redrafts with Harris, I want to see them kind of work on their offensive line first.
I'd like to see some reports about a healthy Big Ben out of camp participating.
I think he was healthy all last year.
I don't think. No,
For the most part.
I think.
You think he was still recovering a little bit from his Tommy John surgery?
Or he's just oblivious to how he played last year and he wants to come back for more torture. But no, I think he's still got a year or two left. I think he had a down year. I think he was hurt. I think he had a lot of young receivers that didn't know what the heck they were doing and still flashed some.
Yep.
So I'm excited about the offense. Yeah.
On to the 26th overall pick. It's Cleveland. They take Greg Newsome, cornerback. Once again, fantasy show. Not talking about defense, but you take a good defense, and you can only you're talking about building on good defenses from last year. That's what the Browns are doing here. So, I think the Browns are actually going to end up taking a wide receiver in round, like probably today, which is once again Friday,
starting right now,
day the day of rounds 2 and 3. So, I'd be down with them taking a wide receiver there. There's still plenty of good ones left on the board. So let's move on to the 27th overall pick. I like this pick by the Baltimore Ravens, who took Rashad Bateman. How do you feel about Rashad Bateman moving forward with the Ravens?
First, I have, as of course, again, a fantasy show. I'm a little worried because, as I admitted last night, I've got more Lamar trepidation than I did at this time last year. Because of the season he had in 2020. So, but I love the player himself, Rashad Bateman. I think this is the type of player they needed. They needed a quote-unquote true number one, an alpha. I think he can do that. I think kind of a rich man's Gallup maybe is a way to put it. Not that I'm besmirching Gallup, but I just think Gallup's a great 2. You know what I mean? So I think with Bateman, you're getting a kind of a step above that. A guy that can get into the number 1 category, in my opinion. Just get him the ball, man. That's kind of where I'm at.
I don't know if he's necessarily a wide receiver 1 or but I think he definitely helps pull some coverage away from Marquise Brown. So in that respect, he can only help.
Got a little size.
And he's got some size, and I believe he has some range too, like as far as like catch range.
Long arm, dude. If my memory serves correct, long arms.
Yep. So and Lamar Jackson at times is not the most accurate passer.
That's
so
fair.
a guy that can vacuum in some semi-errant throws, that's got to be good, right?
Maybe in redraft you can wait and see. I think maybe
I'm a definite wait and see with redraft.
Maybe in Dynasty you'll feel a little better. Again, assuming how you feel about Lamar. I still have hope that this is going to be a good year, and I think this move helps Lamar, but
yeah. I mean, if you're sitting there, if you're sitting there in your wide receiver needy in Dynasty, this is definitely
take a stab at this kid.
I would be targeting.
I don't want to contradict myself because I do like the player, but I'm there with you.
I like the player. I'm not
in love with the landing spot.
I'm not super in love with the situation. Let's put it that way.
Unless we can see the 2019 Lamar, and even that, those wide receiver numbers weren't great.
No,
so we'll see. What do you got next?
28th pick overall, we got the New Orleans Saints, who took a defensive end, Peyton Turner. Once again, fantasy show. We'll move on to the 30th, which is the 29th pick, which is Eric Stokes by Green Bay. If you didn't watch the stream last night, Chris and I might have been a little intoxicated at this moment, but we were not in love with this pick, and I'm still bright-eyed and bushy-tailed today, still not in love with it. I feel like there were some definite wide receivers here that they could have taken, or maybe not an offensive lineman or a center because they did lose their center. That's more of it's not a very center-heavy draft, but they could have done something else to help their team get better, especially on the offensive side of the ball here, and they didn't. And you know what? That might have just been trading down back into trading, like having some team that wants to move up, fielding some calls or something. I don't know. Like this, like supposedly Eric Stokes is pretty good. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to be smart as a
But
player,
it's about where they took him and the team that took him.
But for a team that already has Kevin King, who's pretty good, and a Pro Bowler, Jair Alexander,
Gotcha.
did you really need Eric Stokes?
I'm there with you.
Was that worth a first-round pick?
No. Yeah, it's a bad pick.
I don't know.
And I think a lot of this Rodgers talk started before this guy got picked.
And didn't Green Bay have a really bad run defense at times last year too? And there is a really potentially really good safety that is still on the board
and
right
isn't
now.
the best. Kwity Paye is defensive tackle. Well, technically he's a defensive end and 3-4. I get it, but I think there's Gallimore was still on the board.
Yeah.
No, I like the move. I like the move back option. I like if you got to stay and pick. I know I'm a little biased, but I like Rondale Moore there. I think you give him a weapon like Rondale Moore who can not only play in the slot, return kicks and punts if you want him to. He can also
really
give a
fast.
little bit of a breather to Aaron Jones. I think he's that type of a Sproul-esque type of guy, but also a heck of a receiver. So we're in agreement.
Isn't Rondale Moore and even Elijah Moore, aren't they just both really fast?
Elijah Moore's probably the better pick, to be honest. Go ahead. What's that?
But I mean, like,
fast.
so either one of those dudes, like, they're super fast, so you can send them down the field.
Man.
They're
Elijah
field
Moore in
stretchers.
the slot. Now he's more of your actual
it's just-
slot, true slot. I'm lining
Yeah.
up in a 3 wide receiver set every down right here, as opposed to Rondale. To be clear, that's a good thing to mention. I'd probably go.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just there's a reason why Aaron Rodgers. It's the scuttlebutt going around
Paris
is
Marshall
that there's just
still there.
that there is just so much. There's Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are not on the same page. There have been reports saying that he's just done with the organization. And after this move, I don't blame him. After last year,
Yeah,
I
this
don't
dates
blame
back
the
to
guy.
last year, folks. That
And
throwaway pick of
I don't want to go into I don't want to like listen to the rumor mill and report on rumors, but man, Aaron Rodgers, you got to be unhappy. And if you're not, then you're living on cloud 9 or something. And I know you just got engaged and everything, buddy, but that hosting Jeopardy speculation is starting to look more and more real.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Aaron Rodgers to replace Alex Peck. Actually,
Real quick, hopefully just 2 minutes on this. So
go for it.
What if you're Houston? I heard somebody pontificate a little bit about the Rodgers stuff we just talked about, and he took the approach of that Green Bay is not necessarily a team that needs a quarterback in return if they need to deal Rodgers. And you're Houston, and you can't really give them. I mean, you can give them Watson, but do you take Watson if you're Green Bay? So is that a marriage? And they start Jordan Love because hey, they're the ones that picked him in the first last year. Are you ready to start him?
But if you're Aaron Rodgers, you don't want to go to Houston. It's just that situation has also been running. Granted, it's a different GM, it's a different front office.
That thing's been running to the ground.
But that team is in shambles.
End of discussion.
Right now.
You're right. That thing's been running to the ground. You're right. You're Aaron Rodgers. You don't want to go there. The ones I heard mentioned was Denver, Raiders, and another West Coast ish
something.
Yeah. Anyway, we can move on.
I don't remember what the third team was. There was a third team and
the big players in it. Oh well, San Fran. Yeah, it was San Fran. Really? That's the one we didn't touch on. That was the big rumor. It was the third overall pick to Green Bay and some other ancillary pieces for sure. But that would have been crazy. But that didn't happen, folks.
All right. On to the Bills pick, which they took with the 30th overall pick. They took Greg Rousseau. He's a defensive end. The next two guys
we're gonna
are
have a
edge
few of
players
those to
too.
finish up.
In which the Ravens then. They got the Chiefs pick, so they took an edge rusher, which they did.
This is where those edges started to make more sense. Well, several picks ago. But
I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at my notes.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. It's Jason Owe, who the Ravens took, and then to round out the first round, the Bucks with the 32nd pick took Joe Tryon. And
I
he's
still read
also
that it's
an edge
Tyron
rusher.
the first time.
Anyways, that's kind of what it is. Anything that you're kind of hoping to see today and moving forward?
Good point. I'm coming back to Rondale Moore. I think
you love him, and I'm not really
do you
sure
need to
why.
move up to get him? I need to look at the draft order. Well, obviously it's similar to the beginning of the first. barring a trade. Yeah, so obviously Jags aren't taking I don't think Jags would do that. Jets. Ooh, Niners. No, you already have Debo and Ayuk. I don't think you take Falcons.
What?
Falcons and make him a running back / wide receiver. Take
Nah.
Rondale Moore.
I
You think that's
honestly,
still too early? Let's put it that way.
I don't understand your Rondale Moore love, to be honest. So whatever.
You should watch more about him. But anyway,
Okay.
that's what I'm looking at. First half of the second, maybe somebody takes a chance on that kid.
All right. I mean, I gotta say, as of recording this, the Falcons are on the clock right now in round
Okay,
2,
good call.
and I kind of hope that they take Javonte Williams out of North Carolina. I would love to see that. I'd like to see him paired with Mike Davis. Mike Davis taking more of a pass catching
running back
role. So, I'd like to see that, but whatever. That's kind of all I'm gonna say right now. We'll report on the rest of it next
we'll
week.
get our follow-up show for the second and beyond.
I think that's it, Chris. Unless you got something else to say.
Just, like, follow, and share. I'm picking up the Twitter game a little bit lately, and we're going to
leave us comments in YouTube,
Please.
or you can always subscribe. And if you're watching or if you're listening in podcast format, please rate and review wherever possible. If you are watching in podcast format, like I said, you can check us out on YouTube. You can get us on the Ukrainian dark web, or just your regular YouTube app. Probably the preferred method. But hey, if you want to go to the Ukrainian dark web and you're like, oh hey, amazing fantasy football, I would like to get them.
Speaking of the Ukrainian dark web, no, I'm just kidding. I didn't have a transition for that.
Okay.
I thought it was funny.
And if you're watching us on YouTube and you would like to check us out in podcast format, you can check us out wherever podcasts are available. And I believe even your sleazy podcast dealer that you meet behind the local Burger King has us available too. And say hi to Greg for us.
We're gonna revamp the Discord server. There should be a channel in there for our podcast release, our YouTube video releases. We'll leave a little Discord link down below.
As of right now, like I said, next week we're going to be doing the rest of the reactions to the rest of the draft, and maybe for some free agency moves or whatever. It might be a longer episode because it's going to be a lot of stuff to cover.
And we'll have all week to work on it.
And after that, we might take a little break, but we're going to do some, like Chris just said, he or I, one of us, or the combination of the two of us is going to work on our Discord server, which you can always email us for an invite, and it's always at the end of the video or whatever, and in show notes too. But we're going to take a little break. I'm going to work on some player videos. Tua is up next on my list, assuming that the Dolphins don't draft a quarterback at some point. A quarterback of note, let's put it that way. And until then, everyone get your vaccine and keep wearing a mask. We're almost through this thing, folks. And until next time, have a good bye.